My father never once told me good job until I was 19 years old. I'll save when that happened for our story. But so no matter how hard I worked, no matter how good I did in sports, it didn't even get one acknowledgement. So I actually, when I joined the military, one of my driving reasons for joining the military is I wanted to go somewhere where I would actually get tested and then get acknowledged for the outcome of my performance, and it would be objective. There would be no wishy-washy. It was like, you don't win, you don't get the reward. If you don't, demonstrate proficiency, you don't get the reward. So the point I'm driving at here is that I see so many athletes and people that are desperately trying to get the attention and the sense of value of themselves and a sense of meaning and a sense of belonging through what they're doing. And so these things drove me very, very strongly as an athlete, because it was as though I was getting what I didn't get from my father every time I could win something. And I was proving to myself that I was valuable and that I was useful and that I was capable. Because when you grow up as a child, and I had a lot of teachers that told me I would never amount to anything. I failed reading in the 3rd grade and almost didn't make it to the 4th grade, had to go to summer school all summer in a reading school to just make it to the 4th grade. And, I was a kid that had a lot of energy, and I asked questions that teachers didn't want to answer or couldn't answer, and I got in trouble a lot, and I got in trouble in church for asking questions. And so I felt that as I'm working with patients over all these years, I'm watching all these patterns, and I realized over and over again, here this person's come to me often in severe pain. I mean, people, I'm famous for medical failure, so people come from all over the world when nobody knows what to do with these people. Some have 30 or 40 things wrong at once. I mean, everything you can imagine, we call the kitchen sink.
Right.
Everything's going wrong. And most therapists and doctors don't even know where to start. In fact, what they do is they usually say, it's all in your head, because they can't believe anyone could have all of these problems, hormonal problems, neurological problems, structural problems, digestive problems, eliminative problems, psychological problems, relationship problems, crisis in the family, crisis in their life. Where do you start with a person like that? And so I look into, because I'm somebody that does not like to not succeed.
Right.
I went about my therapy the way I went about my athletic endeavors. And it was also very important to me, people paying me a lot of money to do a good job. And so I'm not the kind of guy that just says, well, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you, you're going to have to go somewhere else. To me, it's like, okay, I've got to figure out why that's happening. My number one question as a therapist has always been, what's causing that? And I keep looking until I get to an impasse where I go, okay, if this one thing is resolved, it'll cause a domino effect. And that domino effect could free this person. And I realized that people's libido, their life force energy, is caught in these unresolved traumas. It's caught in these insecurities. And I saw that people were dangerously externalizing their sense of self. So I can give you a perfect example. I had a professional hockey player come to me that needed my help and was in trouble. And I was, at the time, my office was on the 2nd story of the building I was working in. It was in my institute in Vista, and I could see the parking lot from my office. And he pulled in a twin-turbo Porsche Carrera that's at that time probably $150,000 to $200,000 car. I mean, wow. It's the high-end, tricked-out Carrera. And as I was coaching him and teaching him what he needed to do, I noticed he was eating all commercial food, junk, and had no sense of diet whatsoever. I said, look, we got to switch you to certified organic food or you're not going to heal. And he looked at me and said, I can't afford that. I said, I knew how much he was making. He was making $4 million a year.
What?
I said, dude, you're making $4 million a year. You're driving a $150,000 to $200,000 car. And you're telling me you cannot afford organic food. I said, what the fuck's going on here? I said, you better sell your car and get a moped if you have to so you can eat food, or your career is going to be over soon, because you're not going to recover if you keep eating this crap that you're eating.
Right.
I said, there's no such thing as saving money on food. I said, where the hell's all your money going? And he said, well, I think he said he had 4 houses. He had a car and toys at every house. He had multiple women that he was, loving.
Taking care of, probably buying things for. Yeah.
And he said, I'm maxed out. I spend every penny I got to manage all this stuff. And I said, well, so what's the point? There's the externalization of the self.
Yeah.
See, he sees his success in his car and in his houses and his toys. And, it's like hockey players love to dress really well, and they're always comparing cars and dicks and sticks and everything else, and women, motocross racers. This is very common.
I think that's the professional athlete in general.
It's common, across the board. The women aren't quite so bad, but they have their share of problems too.
Sure.
Mostly that they masculinize themselves. But what I'm really trying to point out here is, as I realized, I have got to get to what's really driving this crisis of self. And I identified early on in my career that all behaviors, which are choices, ultimately, behaviors and choices, are the products of beliefs. And so, I've been doing this for 41 years now. So I started looking carefully into their profile, and I have a very comprehensive intake form, probably the most comprehensive in the world. It takes people about 8 hours to fill out the intake paperwork because it asks everything. I mean, I want to know the history of your family, your injury, your in utero experience. You might have to call your mother. I mean, I have to know this because I can't get to the real issues if I don't. And there's a lot of testing that I do on their bodies, and I can read their energy fields, and I have those abilities. So I identified so consistently that it almost always went back to some belief about what God wanted, what God expected. I mean, I could go on a long discussion of all this stuff, but what happened was I realized that we've got to expand our understanding of a gym, because we go to a physical gym or we go to sports conditioning to build our bodies, to get stronger, to look better, and we attempt to feel better. But I've worked with many of the top bodybuilders in the world and most beautiful athletes in the world who are very insecure, who are very, have a lot of neurotic tendencies and behaviors, who have a lot of unhealed trauma, who are often not aware that they're really trying to achieve something, either to get mommy's approval or daddy's approval.
Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for some more fun clips.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.